Hi, my name is Jocelyn Judge, and today I'll be talking about the poem Digging by Seamus Heaney. I will be analyzing this poem by using the context that I've learned throughout the grade 12 English course. This will include analyzing literacy devices used in the poem, as well as comparing it to the novel The Wars by Timothy Findley, and also the graphic novel that we read throughout the course. Digging is a poem about the emotional upbringing of the land that Seamus Heaney grew up in. Seamus grows up in a family who cherishes farming, as both his father and his grandparents were farmers. This relates to the wars, as Robert Ross is a huge fanatic of farms and animals. This poem has a heavy theme of family, as the poem is told with three generations of the family. The family has a great emphasis on hard work through farming and really cherishes it. This makes it a big part of Seamus's life, as he values the profession of farming as is an essential part of his family's tradition. Seamus, however, faces a dilemma as he chooses the profession of a writer rather than a farmer, unlike his father and his grandfather. This causes many problems for Seamus, as he feels isolated from his family because he is not carrying out the same profession as his family did. Now I will talk about the rhyme scheme used in the poem. I didn't really notice any consistent rhyme scheme throughout the entire poem. However, I did notice AABB scheme in the lines under my window, a clean rasping sound, when the spade sinks into the gravely ground. I also noticed alliterations with the sound of T in the lines, he rooted out tall tops, buried the bright edge deep. Furthermore, the sound of C in the lines of soggy peat, the cur cuts of an edge. I also noticed repetition of the lines, the squat pen rests, snug as a gun. An example of irony being used is how the author talks about the process of digging, but how he did not follow the path of his father and grandfather of becoming a farmer, and how instead he became a writer. The use of irony helps him express his thought process of becoming a writer. It also justifies his personal reasoning for not following his father and grandfather's traditions in becoming a farmer for a career. Symbolism is an important literacy device used in this poem, as without symbolism, the poem can feel emotionless and dry. Through the use of symbolism, Seamus has made the poem more expressive. For example, he uses digging to symbolize family and tradition as they cherish it. Even though Seamus is not a digger, digging is still close to his heart as it symbolizes his family and the tradition that their family values in digging. He uses a spade to represent his pen, as spades are used to dig and pens are used to write. He relates these two by making a connection in order to represent the emotions that he has towards his family and his tradition that his family has by comparing the two and valuing the passion and hard work and commitment that both him and his family put into their careers. The author uses literacy devices to have a greater emphasis through expressing his ideas. On another note, poetry should be studied as an independent piece of literature, as the poem itself holds no correlation with the personal affairs of the author. The literature should have no focus on the psychological and historical importance of the author, and that should not impact the way the reader approaches the poem at all. Digging should be analyzed through the view without regarding the author's personal life at all. Examples of personification being used can be seen in the lines, the cold smell of potato mold, the squelch and slap of soggy peat, and the curds of an edge, through living roots awaken in my head. Now, to compare some of the literature works that I have studied and read in the course, I will be talking about how they compare to one another. I'll start off by Charlie's War, and an important theme that I noticed in this novel was patriotism. The novel is of a young and naive individual who is persuaded to join the army because of the romance of war, as well as the self-respect he gains by joining the army. Charlie is an optimistic individual who fights for his country because he feels that is the right thing to do. Another theme I also analyzed in this novel is violence. There is a lot of violence throughout the novel as there are soldiers dying, bombs being blown up, and shots being consistently fired as would happen in any other war. It makes the reader feel empathy, remorse, and worry as they fear for Charlie's life and all those impacted in the war. The author does this by expressing the violence throughout the novel, as we see the characters' friends dying and also expressive details about how they die. The reader can also notice how Charlie's character development has developed, as the horrors that he faces throughout the war change him. An example of this would be when he stabbed the sniper and didn't feel any guilt about it. This can be found in page 20. Charlie faces violent emotions as he murders a soldier from the other side. Now I will be talking about the novel The Wars, in which our main protagonist, Robert, is an innocent and kind-hearted person who cares for all innocent beings, such as his sister and the animals he loves with his dear heart. An example of this can be seen in the beginning of the novel when he is ordered to shoot the rabbits. However, he refuses to do so because they have caused no harm to him. This reflects the caring and loving nature that Robert has with animals and caring and innocent people. Robert, however, experiences a traumatic event in his life when his sister dies outside of his barn. This causes him to enroll in the Canadian Army as a replacement to taking care of his sister. Instead, he will be taking care of the country and humans by serving for his country. Robert shoots a horse with a broken leg on a ship later on in the novel. And as he does this, he has horrific flashbacks of his sister's death, promoting negative emotions throughout his mind. Robert feels like he is killing his sister by killing this horse, and he faces a lot of dilemmas when killing individuals, such as animals or even the enemies on the other side. We see animals a lot in this novel, as they represent innocence and nature, as the author emphasizes his theme of violence by enacting violence on these kind and innocent beings. The same can be said for Robert's sister. Robert Ross uncovers the true horrors of war and is permanently scarred for life, as war changes his behavior. An example of this is when a shell explosion occurs with the horses, and he kills the soldier who is responsible for inflicting the horses. Robert becomes enraged with this act, as he said, if an animal did this, we would shoot it. This can be found on page 202. Robert Ross hates the double standards that humans and animals have when talking about conflict. Furthermore, Robert Ross experiences a lot of violence in the wars. This can be seen with the animals, the loss of Roswell and Rowan, and not to forget about all the other lives in the war. Rodwell, who is an army soldier, ends up committing suicide because of the many atrocities he has experienced throughout the war. He shoots himself in no man's land, and when his good friend Robert discovers his body the next Saturday, because he is not in the same division as him, he is horrified by discovering his corpse. These events emotionally change Robert, leading him to see the nurse. However, the nurse recommends suicide for his cause. Violence has changed Charlie and Robert as they both experience traumatic events throughout the war. The wars and Charlie's War are both very similar in that they both show the outcomes of soldiers after experiencing violent events. I enjoyed reading and analyzing The Digging by Seamus Heaney, The Wars by Timothy Findley, and Charlie's War, as I learned and gained vast amounts of knowledge, and I also look forward to reading many more novels and poems on my free time. Thank you.